Hey everyone, so let me put this on your radar. There's a dark, twisted Arthurian RPG you might have totally missed, and it's hitting its 1.0 launch. It's called Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, and this one's been flying under the radar for a lot of people, but it might just be one of the most promising grimdark RPG releases this year. Obviously, Oblivion was a major hit, and if you're just coming off that game and still craving a dark fantasy adventure, then I would highly recommend you look into this one, as Oblivion is clearly one of the games that inspired the devs behind this game. They've even gone on to say, "It is so good to see Oblivion coming back with such a style. It is one of those games that shaped us when we were kids, teens, and continues to be a huge source of inspiration. Big congratulations to the team responsible for the remaster. We can't wait to get back to Cyrodiil ourselves, but for now, well, we have a game to finish first, and we are honestly doing our best to deliver something unique that we hope you will remember for quite a long time." Winky face. And honestly, through all my research with the game so far, the developers seem to be very in touch with not only their audience, but their vision for their game. They just seem to be very wholesome and very transparent. I mean, AA and indie studios are just killing it lately. I've really enjoyed my time recently with games from these smaller studios, but that's a topic for another time. Let's get back to Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. Developed by Questline and published by Awaken Realms, this game is what they call a love letter to first-person open-world RPGs. Think big, branching storylines, lots of freedom in how you play, and a thick atmosphere soaked in that dark, decaying fantasy vibe. If you're into Broken Kingdoms and Cursed Knights, you're in the right place. Now, those of you that know me know how much I struggle with open world games. It's not really against the open world game itself, it's more of a personal issue with how long the game takes for me to complete, but I am incredibly biased to grim dark fantasy RPGs. So I'll be diving into this game for sure, even if it takes me months to finish. According to the devs, you can expect 50 to 70 hours of content spread across 3 massive zones, hundreds of fully voiced NPCs, and a deep build system with everything from stealth archers to alchemist berserkers, and a morally gray world shaped by your choices. You've got all the fantasy staples: dungeons, secrets, side quests, gear, crafting, fishing, farming, even building out your own house. But the real kicker is the world itself. Avalon is rotting, and at night, the weirdness rolls in, this weird, chaotic force that twists the world and makes everything way more dangerous. And the best part, we're finally getting the 1.0 full release on May 23rd. It's been in early access since 2023, but this is the big beefy patch. And real quick, for anyone who already owns this game, your save files will be wiped when this 1.0 patch comes out, so keep that in mind if you're playing the game right now. There's a lot coming with the full launch, including third person and some big quality of life upgrades, but I'll break that down in just a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, I've always had a soft spot for dark fantasy worlds. I'm talking Oblivion, Lord of the Rings, the kind of gritty, moody, atmospheric stuff. Give me crumbling ruins, strange magic, cursed kingdoms, and I'm in. That's actually why I was excited for Avowed at first. If you remember that very first trailer, the one with the arrow falling through the sky, lighting up the cavern below, it gave off serious Khazad-dûm vibes. It was dark, mysterious, had that classic fantasy weight to it. Then, yeah, the tone shift happened, bright colors, quirky animations, it kind of lost me at that point. Tainted Grail though, this one had me from the prologue. It doesn't pretend to be anything else. It's dark, bleak, and atmospheric right out of the gate. It's not trying to charm you with quirkiness, the world is messed up, and it's leaning hard into that vibe. Even that cinematic trailer, the one where King Arthur's crown falls and shatters when it hits the ground, come on, that was chef's kiss. You just know you're stepping into a broken world. And when I finally got my hands on the game, yeah, I'll admit, it's not the most polished experience out there. There are some rough edges for sure, but it never felt bad to play. In fact, that jank almost added to the charm. It reminds me a little of what Skyrim felt like back in the day, where the world feels lived in, raw, and kind of dangerous in a way that's hard to fake. Now, I haven't seen everything in the game, but that mood is something a lot of modern fantasy games try to chase, and Tainted Grail nails it effortlessly. Alright, so let's talk about where Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon stands right now. It's essentially a grimmer, more focused version of Skyrim, dropped into a world where the legends are broken, the land is dying, and every corner feels like it's one step away from being consumed by madness. You start the game in prison, your classic RPG setup, but right away, you're introduced to meaningful choices that define your starting playstyle. Whether you want to sneak, slash, or sling spells, the game sets you up with a surprising amount of flexibility. The dual-wield combat is a big standout here. You can mix and match melee weapons, shields, bows, spells, and more, and it's not just press left click to win. There's actual depth, light and heavy attacks, stamina management, parries, dodges. You need to think and adapt mid-fight, which keeps things interesting. This first undead creature actually gave me a good run for my money, but I ended up getting him. Dodging just took some getting used to, and this was before I learned how to parry. But magic is where things get especially creative. Spells are physical items you find, loot, and equip, and each one has a light and heavy version. it gives the whole system this really tactile experimental feel, like a hybrid between looter mechanics and classic RPG spellcasting. I tend to stay away from magic focused builds in games like these, but to be honest, the magic in this game has been incredibly fun to use so far, so I'll probably create a more magic focused character when I jump into 1.0. Exploration is a huge focus, of course. The world is big, but more importantly, it's dense. You're not just walking through empty space, there are hidden caves, ruined castles, bizarre side quests, weird little NPCs, and creatures lurking in places they really shouldn't be. It has that Oblivion or Morrowind feeling where turning off the path usually leads to something worth finding. Narratively, it leans hard into dark fantasy. This doesn't appear to be your chosen hero saves the world storyline. It's bleak, morally murky, and a bit tragic, in a good way. From what I've experienced, the writing is solid, the voice acting is better than you'd expect from a AA title, and the world building is genuinely intriguing. Now, it's definitely not perfect. Performance can dip, animations are a bit stiff, and some systems still feel like they need a bit more love, but it's playable. And more importantly, it's fun. The jank is there, sure, but it doesn't get in the way. Like I said earlier, it kind of gives the game character. It reminds you this is an ambitious indie project, not a billion-dollar blockbuster. Prior to 1.0, the game already had a substantial amount of content, new areas, mini bosses, spells, gear, and even a revamped character creator. It's clear the devs are actively building on player feedback, and that shows in the quality of life improvements and is reinforced again with a highly requested feature coming to 1.0, the ability to play the game in third person. This is something the devs originally said wasn't in the cards, but after feedback from the community, they actually pulled it off. And while they're clear it's still a bit rough around the edges, it's a fully playable option at launch. Personally, I'm probably going to stick to the first person mode as this game was built around that mode and it was intended for first person. But having that option, especially an accessibility feature, was definitely a smart move. And according to feedback on this already, people are really liking the third person mode, so I'll definitely have to dabble into it a bit. Now let's talk content because there's a lot of it. The full version will include 3 massive regions, and together these zones make up what the devs estimate will be 50 to 70 hours of gameplay, and that's if you're just focusing on the main quests and some side content. There's also a huge amount of variety packed in, 200 plus side quests, 250 plus unique NPCs, 75 plus dungeons, 400 plus weapons, 100 plus enemy types, and over 55 unique spells, plus soul cubes that add depth to both combat and lore. The devs are even adding new dungeons centered around the Knights of the Round Table, which I love because it ties back into that twisted Arthurian mythos the game leans into so well. That mix of familiar legend and dark reinterpretation is a big part of the game's identity, and it looks like they're doubling down on it. Visuals and spell effects are also getting a nice upgrade in 1.0. From what I've seen so far, they seriously polished the animations, especially in third-person mode, where things like summoning and spellcasting look clean and dynamic. And it's not just Flash, there's a clear push for quality of life in this game. There's a new camera distance feature coming in 1.0 where you can zoom the camera out a bit more in third person mode, which is such a simple but very smart inclusion. It tells me the devs are listening and actively working to make the game feel good to play. They're even poking fun at themselves with jokes in the dev post, like acknowledging the Oblivion remaster shadow dropping on them while they were planning their own golden armor bonus. That kind of humility and humor goes a long way with me. They're not chasing trends, they're just trying to make a damn good RPG. By the time you're watching this video, Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon is probably either just about to hit 1.0 or it's already out. If you're someone who loves gritty, immersive RPGs, especially the kind with darker fantasy vibes like Oblivion, Skyrim, or even the atmospheric tone of Dark Souls, this is a game that should definitely be on your radar. From what I've seen so far, it's not trying to be the biggest or flashiest RPG out there, but what it is trying to be, it nails. A moody, story-rich, exploration-driven adventure that doesn't hold your hand but invites you into a crumbling world full of mystery, danger, and twisted legend. It's not perfect, some systems still feel a bit rough and the polish isn't on par with AAA titles, but that kind of works in its favor. There's a charm in how ambitious it is, even with a smaller team behind it. It feels like a passion project, and those are always worth supporting. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this one post-launch. I'm planning to play through the full game, even though it might just take me a good chunk of time to get through it, but I'm looking forward to spending my time in this world that they've created, and I just wanted to share my early thoughts on the game because I think this one is going to be super special. But thanks again for watching. Take excellent care of yourself, call someone you love, and goodbye!